and make those embers glow. I'm on my way, and I don't skip a beat. I can't help it, I've got happy feet. So good, I do what I want and it's understood. There's no stopping me when I'm doing my thing. I'm doing my thing. I'ma do me. You know what I mean. I'm on fire. I'm feeling glad there's a spark in my soul. Feel my heart goes in. I'm clapping my hands and I'm pulling these strings. No stopping me when I'm doing my thing. I'm doing my thing. I'ma do me. I'ma do me. You know what I mean. You know what I mean. I'm on fire. Yes, I am. I'ma do me. I'ma do me. You know what I mean. Oh, you know what I mean. I'm on. Yes, I am. I'm on fire, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm on fire, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm on fire. I'ma do me. I got happy feet. You know what I mean. I got happy feet. I'm on fire. I feel good. I feel good right now. I'm on fire, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm on fire, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm on fire. I'ma do me.
Smooth like butter, like a criminal undercover. Pop like trouble, breaking into your heart like that. Cool shade stunner, yeah, owe it all to my mother. Hot like summer, yeah, I'm making you sweat like that. Oh, when I look in the mirror, I melt your heart in two. I got the superstar glow, so I step right into my beat. High like the moon, rock with me, baby. Know that I got that heat. Let me show you kiss talk is cheap. I step right into my beat. Get it, let it roll, smooth like butter. Pull you in like no other. Don't need no usher to remind me you got it bad. Ain't no other that can sweep you up like a rubber. Straight up, I gotcha, making you fall like that. Oh, when I look in the mirror, I melt your heart in two. I got the superstar glow, so I step right into my beat. High like the moon, rock with me, baby. Know that I got that heat. Let me show you 'cause talk is cheap. I When you try your best but you don't succeed. When you get what you want but not what you need. When you feel so tired but you can't sleep. Stuck in reverse. And the tears come streaming down your face. When you lose something you can't replace. When you love someone but it goes to waste. Could it be worse? Lights will guide you home and ignite your bones, and I will try to fix you. And high up above or down below, when you're too in love to let it go. But if you never try, you'll never know just what you are. Lights will guide you home and ignite your bones, and I will try to fix you. Tears stream down your face when you lose something you cannot replace. Tears stream down your face, and tears stream down your face. I promise you I will learn from my mistakes. Tears stream down your face, and lights will guide you home and ignite your bones, and I will try to fix you.
Ultimate aesthetic implantology. Isn't that what we all strive for? For many decades, we have been searching for the answers in achieving natural aesthetic outcomes in immediate anterior implant therapy. Some of those include dual zone technique and soft tissue grafting. These are all compensatory techniques that inevitably undergo remodeling process in the future. But socket shield technique is different. It is the answer in preservation of natural architecture for ultimate aesthetics. I'm proud and honored to announce that together with Dr. Jeff Lee, periodontist from Toronto, Canada, we will be leading an intensive hands-on socket shield lecture and workshop. We will be covering the principal socket shield, the step-by-step protocol to produce predictable aesthetic outcome, and how the incorporation of digital dentistry can increase consistency. Are you ready to discover the new gold standard of aesthetic implant dentistry? Come and learn the socket shield technique with us at the 16th MegaGen International Symposium workshop in New York City. We hope to see you soon in the Big Apple.
Hi everybody, can you hear me okay? Let me just see. Yep, sound works. All right, what time is it right now? It's a little over 10 o'clock and it's a Friday night. I didn't expect many of you to join, but whoever joined, I really appreciate it. I'm a little bit under the weather. I went to an aquarium last weekend, last Sunday, long weekend in Canada with a family long weekend. And my daughter, my 6-year-old daughter, wanted to go to a Seattle aquarium. So it was a long drive from Vancouver to Seattle, and we spent the whole day there. Came back, but the weather kind of sucked. It was kind of cold, rainy. Had a great time, but yeah, I even got the Seattle mug. See, aquarium, right, with the little otters. Okay, I collect mugs. That's my my thing. So wherever I go, I try to grab myself a coffee mug. This one cost me $20, believe it or not. Okay, what happened to those days that mugs used to cost like $6-7, right? So it's becoming a expensive hobby. All right. So today I have an interesting a case. It's not a long one, but it's becoming more and more relevant, I think. Like implant complication is I think becoming more relevant than it used to be, right? Because it used to be one of those things that like a big white elephant, and nobody want to talk about it, and it didn't happen that often. But as you do more and more, and you'll get your share of complications as well, right? And it is kind of one of the situations where specialists or implantologists don't really like it when somebody just refer you for complications only. Okay, that's the reality. I think it's worthwhile to talk about it so that hopefully, if you ever get a situation like this, right, especially anterior complication situation, then what I share with you can possibly come in handy, right? So that's all that is. However, I wish you, none of you, I wish upon to have complications such as this, especially anterior cases, right? So what I want to talk mostly about today is implant fracture. Okay, I mean, it's going to happen to it can happen to any implant system. Some more prone to another, depending on the design. We'll talk about that today as well. But I've come to realize that there are easier ways to deal with implant fractures in the anterior cases. Of course, it's a posterior. It's not so much of a concern. You just drill some bone and take it out, try to find out socket graft, wait a few months, and then you go at it again, right? But that's like 8 months, right? 4 months for bone graft and another 4 months for implant to heal before you get a crown. And for most part, that's okay. Patient can accept it. But some of the things that I find that is, very, difficult to have a patient's conversation with is, number one, why is the implant fractured, right? So you gotta find a way to carefully explain to them. Second is how to deal with it, right? Because if you tell a patient, I'm going to take that implant out and put some bone in there and have her wear flipper or something for 4 months while the bone heal, and then you're going to put an implant and then wait another 4 months for the crown to go in. That's a hard pill to swallow, right? Okay. Especially when a patient had implant for quite a number of years, in this case almost 8 years. How do you do that? Okay. Is there a way to remove the implant? Like how we remove the tooth and put an implant in at the same time? We call it replantation, right? And give a immediate temporary at the same time, right? Is it predictable? We know that immediate implant after taking tooth out, implant therapy is predictable. How predictable is immediate replantation? Is it as predictable, or is it easier or more difficult, right? So in short, it is more difficult, but not so much. Once you understand the way to easily remove with a minimally traumatic way possible, then you can almost predictably guarantee, not guarantee, I shouldn't use that word, with high predictability that you can have a patient walk out with a immediate temporary crown. Okay, and most of my anterior fracture cases, which I have a lots of experience with, I think if I had more anterior fracture than anybody in this country, Canada, for sure. And almost 90% of anterior fracture cases, I was able to replant it and give an immediate temporary and walk out, and more or less soften the damage, right? Okay, it's more forgivable. So we're going to talk about how we can safely remove that. And third thing that I want to discuss today is, if you guys are interested, how do you charge the patient, right? Like, do you have any warranty program? What if, something happened after the warranty? Do you charge the patient full? Do you give them a break? Okay, so I'll talk about a little bit of that as well. Okay, because a lot of you will not, they're not going to really talk about like that kind of stuff in a lot of the courses, right? So I'll talk about that. So who's here today? Okay, wow. So Anas, you're in Nicaragua, midnight. Wow, what are you doing there? Right? Sounds very exotic. Fancy. Okay, and we also have a doctor. Okay, Yoan Liang. Okay, I gotta meet you someday. I hope to meet you in New York, because I know you're coming. Whoever is coming to New York, I hope some of you are coming to New York. I am one of the last speaker at the New York Symposium second day. But if you are coming to a New York Magazine Symposium, please look me up. I really would appreciate that. Some of you, I got to know each other through our Facebook for a few years, but never got to see it. And I always enjoy meeting somebody that I've gotten to know on my Facebook, online, and on site, like in a real real life event. Like last year in Vietnam, I was one of the keynote speaker, and met some of you in Vietnam at the World Cup conference, and I was very, very excited, right? So I look forward to that. Okay, so let's begin. Let's begin today's presentation. Okay, shall we? Let's go into the. All right. So we have. Let's go picture in picture. Let's go picture in picture. Okay, here it is. Okay, you guys can see my face as well. All right. Okay, so hopefully you guys can hear me. Hopefully sound is okay. If there's any issue, please notify me so that I can adjust the sound or something. Last time we had some echoing problem. This time I turned on the echo cancellation, okay, in the software, so it should be less reverb. Okay, so hopefully that'll be okay. All right. Okay, let's go. Okay, here we go. Excellent. Okay. Hope it's not this one. Okay, good. So that's that. Okay, so let's talk about this case right here. Okay. These are some of the cases that I've experienced. Complication, fractures that come in many different forms. It can happen to any implant, as you can see on this one right here. This is a locator. know about active implant that's fractured right in half, right? That's rare, right? Okay. What is the cause? I don't know, but probably this one, the locator abutment is a little too tall. Okay, a little too tall. So doctor referred to me was this happened, and there was an implant that was stuck in the apex and couldn't get it out. So I drilled it out. Another thing I often get is how much do you charge, right? I can't charge that much, even though it is not an easy procedure to do. So I think I only charge like $300-400. Okay, so that's the reason why that I don't enjoy receiving these cases from doctors who are not part of my regular network, right? If they're part of my implant referral network, and if they do some implant, they have a problem, of course, I'll bail them out. I'll squeeze in between my patients and work through my lunch, and I do that. But some doctors, like, they refer out just don't even know them, and they refer me for these things that it's a chuckle, right? Anyways, so so I had a case like this. My own case, this was I believe it was like 15 or 18 millimeter implant with a vertical root fracture, right? Reversing it out. That's another one right over here. And also another cause of implant fracture is when you have a crest of bone loss around the implant, right? So you have start to have a short root to crown ratio. And when you are torquing on the crown, because the bone is not supporting the crest margin of the implant, I find that fracture can happen more often than you think. So I think this one probably the cause of that, right? So you have a fracture there. You can see clearly see a fracture going right across down right over here. Another fracture implant here. Okay, and another one over here. And take a look at this one right here. I don't know if you guys can see it. If you can see it carefully, a doctor referred to me as saying that this implant that he restored 5 years ago during the recall exam, PA, see a radiolucency here. So was asking, my goodness, Mark, can you get a like endodontic looking lesion around the implant, right? Is there look like accessory canal on an implant or something? Well, if you look carefully here, one step further, there is a fracture line that you can actually see on the PA through the screw. So, at a first glance, I thought it was a fractured internal screw, a prosthetic screw, okay? But, of course, it's not a fractured prosthetic screw. You remove the crown, and you take a PA, and then you'll see that there's a fracture, right? And I find that the anterior cases fracture almost always happens on the buccal, right? Almost always. And my speculation is that sometimes the force is like a shear force, right? Shear force that hits on the lingual aspect in an angulation, especially if it's a deep bite, it shears, and that force goes to the buccal, right? It makes sense, right? So I think that is the tendency. Okay, yeah. And this was one of the video. Okay, yeah, right. This is a fracture here. Okay. We have, yeah. All right, here we go. Okay, we're gonna get rid of that. Okay, put a new one in there. And Temporize. Okay, let me see right there. Bite down for me. Okay, so there's a little bump there. So I'm assuming that that's where the buccal fracture is. I'm gonna remove it. Try to stay as minimally invasive as possible. Open. Lucky thing is that final prosthetic screw retains, so it's easy to retrieve the crown. Okay. And then we're gonna remove that implant and put a brand new one in there and temporize, and she gets to go home. All right, and everybody. Okay, so that was the case. So this is the case that I did this week actually. I think it was like Monday or Wednesday or something. And the story is that she came to me a few weeks ago is saying that my implant crown is loose. So I looked at the history of how this case came about, right? And how it was I did this implant surgery quite a while ago. Okay, yeah. Of course, yeah. Before I go into that, we took an X-ray. It didn't really show anything right over here. It's hard to make it through, but you can see the bump right here. One of the telltale signs of implant fracture is about 3 millimeter to 4 millimeter below the buccal gingiva. You'll see a bump, like a fistula developing, right? That when that happened in your head as a differential diagnosis, in my head anyway, differential diagnosis implant fracture, especially if the implant, I'm not gonna name the brand, but it's notorious for having a thin wall. Okay, I'm not gonna say which brand or lineup or that is. I kind of had a hunch that it could be reason for that. Okay, yeah. So that's what it is, right? Okay, a pink swelling here. So what you should do in this situation, how to definitively diagnose this, is that you basically okay. So that's that. Okay. This was in 2015. I did the implant in October and immediate temporary crown. And then 2016, the referring dentist restored this, right? Okay, 2016. And then 2023, when she came a few weeks ago, I removed the crown and I took a PA. Guess what? Voila. Okay, voila. There it is. Okay, fracture right there. Okay, vertical. And well, you think, Mark, can you tell it's a buccal or palatal? You can, not on the PA. You can, okay? But because there's a bump on the buccal, okay, you can pretty much come up with the conclusion that it will most likely in the buccal. And because it's in the buccal, you can also predict that there's not going to be much bone there left, right? Okay, so that's that, right? And we took a CT scan, and that's exactly what you'll see. Not much buccal bone, right? So how do I approach this? Okay, how do I approach this? First thing that I look at it is, what was the initial length of this implant? And if I look at it, initial length was 11.5. Okay, 11.5. This chart was closed, but we had to reactivate it because we're going to treat it again. So we put the sticker 23 here again, but it's 11 and a half. So why knowing the previous implant size is important? This one was 3.5 by 11.5. So when I take a CT, I'm thinking, if I lose a stability here, okay, after explantation, how far more can I go, right, to get some bone stability at the apex, right? And when I'm doing replantation, a special replantation, I want to maximize the existing apical bone as much as possible. But unfortunately, in this case, there isn't much, right? Maybe I have like another 2 millimeter at the most, right? So if this was 11.5, maybe I can push with a 13 if I really wanted to go and grab the floor of the nose. That's one of the way to do. And also, if this was a 3.5 diameter implant, in my head, I'm going, do I want to place another 3.5? Probably not. Two reasons. One, it's going to not stick, right? Okay. And second is, I don't want another thin wall implant in there, right? So I want to put at least a 4.0 diameter implant, okay? Something stronger anyways, right? So this is some of the photos. As you can see, okay, yeah, she is a class 2, division 2 for sure, okay? All right. And hey, Paul, how you doing? Okay, all right. So it's a class 2 division 2, right? And I often use orthodontic occlusion terminology because I used to do a lot of ortho. I don't know if you guys know that. There was a time in my life that I was doing 50% ortho and 50% of my clinical work was implant. And I was debating whether to go all in ortho or all in implant. And I had to make that decision in 2006. And I'm glad that I chose implant because I think implant dentistry is much easier than orthodontics, right? Okay, so she's a class 2 division 2, very upright, not so much deep bite. Okay, so you might argue that in this picture right here, oh, she has deep bite, shear force, that's what caused a fracture. Not so much so here. Look at that, there's slight open bite here, slight open bite, right? So where's really this force coming from, right? I'm not sure. I don't really have an answer, right? But it is this way here. The rest of it looks pretty good. One of the good thing is that this doctor who restored my implant, thank you. He restored it, screw retained, okay? And luckily I placed the implant properly, okay, so that it could be screw retained, and it was easy to remove the crown, right? Because if you want to remove the implant, it's much easier to remove the crown first and then remove the implant fixture rather than trying to remove the whole thing at the same time, right? Okay, so that's that. Okay, so there's few deciding decision to make and few deciding factors, right? Okay, whenever we're doing anterior cases, whether it's an explant and replant or placing a immediate implant with a natural tooth extraction. There's a few things that you do want to think about, right? Hold on a second. Oh, no, I don't want to see that right there. Yeah. So one would be the smile line, right? The smile line is for sure. Okay. And another would be so higher the smile line, more precise you have to be. Okay. And in her case, actually, she did have a quite high smile line. She hides it well, but actually, she's a pretty high smile line. So that is a challenge, right? And second is interproximal pocket depth. So luckily, this case, the two adjacent teeth had a natural teeth, okay, natural dentition. So that means that even if I lose some bone here, as long as I can maintain the interproximal bone, right, I can rebuild up the bone. Okay, it's almost like connective tissue grafting, Miller's classification. Okay, it pretty much applies to implant bone regeneration as well. So there's a lot of debate about how important the buccal plate is. It is important, okay, but not as important as interproximal bone. Far, not even close. If I need to take a tooth out, for example, in this case, if I take this implant out and I need to remove bone, okay, if I really have to remove bone, which bone do I remove? Okay, I will not hesitate to remove buccal bone because I do not want to, okay, remove interproximal bone because buccal bone you can regenerate, okay, if you have a good interproximal bone, but not the other way around, right? Okay, I think that's very, very important, okay? And third is occlusion. Her occlusion is not as bad as we thought. Now, key decision factor, because of that, taking this into consideration, that I had to come up with this incision design, which is very important. And there are a ton of different incision designs, right? And number two is a wound retraction. After the incision and after the whatever I need to do, which is I plan to explant it and replant, bone graft, and immediate temporary and suture. What kind of a wound retraction would I get? Okay, that's a biggie, right? Because low smile line, a little bit of wound retraction is not going to be a big deal. But in her case, right, high smile line, gum line, and everything, I want to make sure that my wound retraction is going to be minimized as much as possible. Okay. And number three, does it need a graft? Yes, it does, because I already know, I've done so many of these, that when I raise a flap, the defect is a lot bigger than I anticipated. It's always the case, right? Okay. So these are the things that I discussed with the patient, right? The patient was devastated. When I took that x-ray and then I showed that little crack line, she goes, "What is that?" Right? Well, I have a good news and a bad news. The bad news is that implant needs to come out. The good news is that I'm pretty good at it. Right? So always like life, right? There's always a good news and a bad news, right? Okay. So that was the situation. So I went in, I raised the flap, and the type of flap design I decided to do, I struggle with the deciding which flap design I should go with, right? Okay, and I decided that I'm going to go with a unilateral remote incision. And I'm going to go remote incision, 2 teeth, but not 1 tooth. So unilateral means that here is just an envelope flap, okay? And remote incision meaning that I'm not flapping on that side, but I'm going 1 tooth behind or 2 teeth behind, okay? So I'm going more remote location, and then I go distal line angle, oblique vertical incision, okay? And and in this case, it's a unilateral remote incision with a canine distal line angle, okay? The advantage of this type of remote incision is that you get good visibility. And if you're a beginner at removing implants, okay, one of the things that you'll definitely want to do is raise flap, okay? Don't go flapless, right? Unless you are absolutely sure that you can remove the implant without good visibility. Sometimes I do that, okay? But in a case like this, it's a solid bone that I know I'm going to have to do a lot of torquing to remove this implant out. I want to see, because if I'm placing too much torque, by you looking at visually on the fixture how my reversing tool is engaging, whether implant's going to pop, meaning that flower out. Because if you flower out, you got to drill the implant out, and you might not be able to give the patient immediate implant right away, okay? So in this case, I decided to raise a flap. And a flap like this, a remote incision, is good visibility, and it's easy to close, okay? These are easy closure, okay? You just need a few interproximal vertical mattress flap closure. It's easy to do. And one of the most important thing about this flap test that I really like for these purposes is a good blood supply, because you have such a wide base, okay? Because if you just go to narrow vertical, some of the doctors do, those are minimum incision, but sometimes they don't heal well, and sometimes they, if you don't suture properly, you end up with what I find is scar tissue, okay? And like a little white line, and you don't want that on a pretty lady like this. Okay? She's a young lady. She's in her late 30s, right? So, you know, I didn't want that to happen, right? And also, yeah, you rarely ever get scar tissue here. However, there is one major disadvantage here. There is a possibility of a papilla loss, right? Okay, possibility. That's why it's so important to know that the patient has enough interproximal bone. So the first thing that I did was measuring perio probe of a papilla, right? So if you don't have a deep pocket on the interproximal papilla, that means that the bone that's going to supply the blood vessels for the interproximal tissue is going to be sufficient, okay? And luckily it is, right? So that's the situation. And we took a picture, and guess what? Boom, right there, right? Okay, it went down as much as where the bone loss is, right? How cool is that, right? So that's the implant, and you know, of course, you know, I want to now remove this, right? Okay, I definitely want to remove this, okay? And how do I remove it? Okay, do you trephine it? No, not for the anterior, because if you get a trephine that is bigger than this, a millimeter this way, a millimeter that way, and this is a 3.5, so that means you're basically 4.55, about 6 millimeter diameter trephine, and getting down there, the biggest problem with the trephine technique is that you're going to destroy interproximal bone, okay? There's one thing that I've learned over the years of making so many stupid mistakes, okay? Stupid is what stupid does, okay? Me, right? And when I've used trephine to remove these, I almost always lost interproximal papilla, okay? Because that destroys the strip of interproximal bone that is so precious. So in a case like this, if I want to remove bone to take that implant out, it's going to be buccal, okay? 100%, trust me on that, okay? But before I remove bone to remove this, I want to see if I can reverse this implant out without removing any bone. That would be the best, right? That would be the best, okay? So the kit of the choice is Easy Fixture Removal Kit, okay? I've used many renowned reversing tool. I've used Salvin, I've used Nobel Biocare Universal type of a Christmas tree that you reverse out. Those are cheap and those are easy to use. The problem with single corkscrew reversing tool is that they put a lot of internal force on it, and on an implant that's already fractured, the problem is it can make the fracture even worse and basically flower out or pop. Okay, so those are not the ones to use for this type of situation. So these are the type of tool reversing kit that you want to use is a two-component system: internal screw to lock in, and then another one, second external, okay, body to reverse the whole thing out. And by grabbing the top, right, you're holding the fracture, encased, like putting a crown on, right? You can hold it together while you are removing that. It's a more complex mechanism, but when they work, okay, they're like a miracle, right? And I've used Hyoscine makes one, Megagen makes a 911 kit, Neo Biotech makes another one. I think pretty much all the really good two-piece reversing tool is made by a Korean company, right? So this one was from Hyoscine, or also known as OS10. Okay, yeah. So how do they work? Let's look at it. Okay.
When you have no option but to remove an implant, you can use this EFR kit, which helps remove implant without affecting the surrounding bone. An implant removal tool should be easy and convenient to use when removing an implant. Turn the remover screw clockwise with the screwdriver included in the EFR kit to fasten the remover screw. Next, turn the remover body counterclockwise to remove the implant. First, turn right, and then turn left to quickly remove the implant easily. An implant removal tool should minimize the amount of bone loss which may occur while removing the implant. EFR kit applies torque directly onto the implant, allowing the clinician to remove only the implant without affecting the surrounding bone. Since the EFR kit removes the implant by rotating it in the opposite direction of its thread, the same implant can be re-implanted immediately upon removal. An implant removal tool should be capable of removing different types of implants. The EFR kit is equipped with various types of remover screws. Clinicians can remove both Ostem and non-Ostem products. The EFR kit allows clinicians to remove a variety of implants, making surgery and treatment much more convenient. Use the EFR kit for quick and easy implant removal.
That's EFR kit. Easy fixture removal kit, probably one of the best in the market. And it's, even though it's not universal, I came up with a list. I used to call it a Kung Fu Panda list, right? Which implant system is compatible with EFR kit? Astra works. Nobel Active, the regular platform works. Megagen implant regular platform works. Obviously, Hyoscine implant works. Anything with 11-degree conical connection, and if this one of the core screw fits, it will most likely work. Also, Brandemark type, okay, external hex, regular platform, it works. So it works with enough implants to be interested. What it does not work with Straumann. I don't think anything works with Straumann. Straumann is like their own thing, right? Okay, their own system, own universe, right? Okay, but the rest of it works. Now, when they work really, really well. So even though this had a fracture, the teeth, as you're reversing it, it grabs on the crown part of the fracture, right? It encases it. So when you put a tremendous force, the implant comes out. Okay, yeah. Now, sometimes though, this is another case. The body, body tool that reverses out, sometimes it strips and it cracks. Okay, and main reason why it cracks, because if it cracks, it's no good. Okay, the implant needs to be now, surgically drilled out, right? And one of the biggest reason why these reversing tool strip or crack is because I was too cheap. Okay, they recommend to use it like once or twice only, and I think I've used this one like 5 or 6 times. Okay, because I was cheap, and then I was testing. Probably they're just trying to make some easy money, but they want you to toss it out, buy a new one. Okay, because these are not that cheap, right? Okay, so I thought it was just bluffing. Guess what? They're not bluffing. Okay, yeah, they actually will break. Okay, so after about a couple uses, I toss them. I get a new one, because there's nothing worse than something breaking and not being able to deliver that new implant in a temporary or anterior cases. Okay, yeah. So that's that. So don't be cheap. Okay, don't be cheap. Okay, and it's funny. Glenn goes, "You gotta read this, right? You gotta love Glenn." Okay, hi Glenn. Glenn goes, right, in Africa right now and have found the witch doctor to eradicate the curse of VNS. You'll never have another fracture. But don't hold me to that. Dr. Glenn Venice, oh my God, my dear friend. And I used to call it's an inside joke. What Glenn is referring is that I've never had a implant fracture until I attended one of Glenn's morning lecture that he was giving a lecture to my students, and the title was implant fracture. He was talking about it because he had one, and then he was talking about it. So when we are talking, and we should be careful with the implant and all this, and he looked at me and he goes, "Mark, have you ever had an implant fracture?" Because no, I torque it, no problem. I've never had one. He goes, "Well, someday you will." Right? And then now I've had a lot of implant fracture upon loading with the Nobel Biocare, right? Because their implants were back then Thionite CPT grade 2, very weak. But when I was using a different brand, I didn't have that problem yet until Glenn, okay, lecture told me at the end of the lecture, Mark, someday you'll have it, right? Just be gentle. And then exactly 2 weeks after that, I start to get a series of implant fractures. And I have to use this reversing tool, and luckily Ostem had a EFR kit that was available, and then I bought some of those and started doing it. And then I talked to my faculty, Dr. Bernard Jin. He goes, "Hey Bernard, like you've been having a fracture?" And he goes, "No, I'm very careful. When I put my implant, I use a torque wrench." And he made me sound like I'm an idiot or something, right? Okay. And then about a couple months later, he goes, "Mark, I got my first fracture." And the second one, another one. So as a faculty, I think we've had a total together about over 200 fractures. Okay. So we are very, very became good at taking these implants out. Okay. So we start calling it the curse of Glenn Van Ness. Okay. The curse of the Glenn Van Ness, right? So that's the inside joke. But thank you, Glenn. You made me a very good at taking implants out. Okay, I'm very good. I think I'm one of the best in the world taking any implants out now. Okay. So what we did was, in this particular case, I tried to reverse the implant out, right? Reverse this out, and you gotta look at the gauge, because this kit has a wrench, right, with a teardrop, but instead of 0 to 40 or 50, this one has starting at 60 or 80 all the way to 300. Okay, so you don't want to go beyond 200, 250, because if you do that, you can actually strip off the teeth or something break. Okay, yeah, it could break. So you don't want to go beyond 200, maybe maximum 250. So what you did, you reverse it, and it wasn't coming out. Okay, and I didn't want to force it, right? Because I could not afford the implant to fracture further, or something to flower, or my tool breaking. So what I do is, in this situation, you get a 557 burr, okay? And you slowly trough the buccal, okay? Where, you know, Mark, are you talking about where the bone is like hardly anything left? Yeah, buccal, you trough a little more, right? Okay, and then you reverse, and if it doesn't, you trough just a little more. Careful not to go too far into the proximal. You can go into the proximal, but be very aware of where the roots are, and you don't want to leave the interproximal bone very, very thin, okay? So you go around, okay, semicircular, right? And then you repeat that a couple times, and you'll hear sudden give, boom, reversing out, okay? That's exactly what happened here, okay? And what I did was, after doing that, got myself a new implant. This one is a Megagen 4 by 11.5, same length, slightly wider implant. Okay, wider implant. I only did a very minor osteotomy. Okay, I only, because it's a 4.0, it's a little bit wider, I didn't want it to drift buccally, so I used a profile drill from Megagen root membrane kit to profile the palatal bone so that I can get a more closer palatal approximation of the implant. So that's what it is. And the depth control is very, very important. And let me talk to you about that, right? This is very, very important. So you need to know where the buccal gingiva is going to be. And from that gingival line, you want to use a rule of the 4, okay, right? Some people call it the zero bone loss concept. I call it the rule of 4. And then you measure 4 millimeter below, and that's how deep the implant should go, okay? Yeah. And there's benefit to that, okay? We'll later a little talk about it. How do you verify that, right? If you sink the implant deep enough, put a 4x4 healing abutment, right? Put a 4x4 healing abutment, just like right over here, and then you approximate the tissue, okay? Just test out, okay? Put the like a blanket back on and see if the healing abutment is just at the gum line or slightly below, okay? Yeah, but you don't want it to be sticking out, okay? Yeah. So that's what it is. And then what you do is, once you're happy, okay, with the healing abutment being at the gum line, you put a sticky bone, okay? And sticky bone is a must, okay? I'm not going to say option anymore, okay? Because doctors who are trying to do the same thing, trying to do this without the sticky bone and using a membrane, all that stuff, you know, it's too much work. Too much work for many of you, okay? And even too much work for me. So learn how to draw blood, make some sticky bone, and put some in there, okay? And this will regenerate the buccal bone, okay? As long as the implant is placed palatal enough, there's enough graft envelope, the bone will predictably regenerate. It's like a dual zone grafting anyways, right? And then, okay, what you do here is, okay, now what you do here is making a chair side temporary, okay? Takes me about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, okay? I think it takes too long, right? Make a chair side provisional crown, and then put it on and stitch it up, okay? Suture it up. So that is what's before, that is after. So I was too lazy to wax up a new tooth. And if you look carefully, look right here. You see that this tooth is a little short? That's because, okay, when the implant was fractured, I put the crown back on and I torqued it, right? Okay, because, you know, initial consultation and appointment and checking this, because of the fracture, the crown went a little deeper, right? That's why it doesn't match. That's why my crown don't match either, because this is a shape from the template from the fractured implant crown, right? Okay, so that's why. Of course, for the final, we're going to level this out a little more, and we're going to make it a little more prettier, okay, all that. But most important thing, guys, pay attention to is gum level. When you do a suturing case like this, okay, and the one thing I like about remote incision is that buccal gum level will almost always match exactly the where it used to be. Because what you don't want in this case to do is a what we call papilla sparing flap. I'm not saying that it's a bad flap design, but there are time and places for that, okay? Yeah, case like this, when you have a significant buccal defect, you don't want a vertical incision to be right on top of where the bone graft is going to be, right? You're going to end up with 100% scar tissue, okay? So flap design is dictated by the underlying bony defect and what you plan to do to fix it, okay? So it's all about the blood supply, right? Okay, so when you're making an incision, you got to think about how you're going to close it up, okay? Yeah, you don't try to make an incision and then try to figure out how you're going to close it up. The incision design and flap approximation design, they come in hand, okay? It has to be absolutely precise, okay? And so that's why remote incision, for many of you, this is going to be, really easy to do, right? So the distal canine line angle, right? Okay, if you look at it, it doesn't show. So even if the scar tissue were to happen, it's forgivable. But if you're to the remote incision on the lateral, okay, or to a papilla sparing, okay, this case would have been disaster, right? Okay, so that's what it is. And then how do you do the suturing? Okay, we used to run a lot of suturing workshop. We might do that with Bernard, because Bernard is really good at micro suturing. Okay, yeah. So how you do it is you want the vector of the suturing to be going incisally, okay, not pulling it back. There are type of a vector that pulls the tissue coronally. This one you want the opposite. You want you want the vector to be go coronally, not apically, right? There are a suture that you want it to be apically pulling, right? Okay, but this is opposite. You want the vector to go coronally towards the crown, right? And how do you do that? Best suturing technique is internal mattress vertical suture. So you take a bite, okay, deeper, okay, about 5 millimeter or so, okay, and then you go right, okay, in, out to in, and then go to the other side and take another deep bite on the palatal. Come back and take a shallower bite on the same side, okay, about a millimeter to millimeter and a half, and then come on out and take another bite. So if you look at it, there's one bite here, one bite here, one bite here, one bite here, okay, and also this is a sling suture, okay, this is a sling suture, okay, yeah, all right, okay, yeah, this is not an incision, this is not an incision, okay, yeah. So you got a sling suture here, and you got a vertical mattress, okay, and that's how it's going to hold the suture all in together, okay, yeah. So that's that, right? And that is pretty much how I finished it. And of course, I gave her a removable nighttime retainer with the cutout tooth, so that, okay, if she were to grind her teeth, it doesn't hit that, right? Okay, yeah. So that is that. Okay, so hope you guys enjoyed it. Okay, if you have any questions, okay, please leave comments. Oh, there's a question here. Patrick, sticky bone with no membrane. Okay, sticky bone with, let me see here. Okay. I like how Glenn said he's so sorry about it. Okay, that's so funny. Okay. Yeah, we love you though, Glenn. All the things happen for the right reason. Okay, so I'm no longer. I think I'm immune to implant fracture now, Glenn. Okay, thanks to you, I'm immune. Okay, nothing phases me. Okay, and here this question, it says a sticky bone with no membrane. Yeah, no membrane. Okay, case like this here, right? Less is more. Okay, less is more. I used to use a lot of membranes. Now most of my membranes are expiring now. Only time that I'll use actually membrane is if I have a huge defect, and I need to do a lot of releasing incision for like sausage grafting and things like that. rather than spending money on a membrane, I'd rather you spend money on good suture and learn how to do a proper suturing. Okay, for me, that's my experience is that I get better result, right? Yeah, I don't think membrane is necessary. Okay, yeah, I'm not saying that you should not use a membrane. Just for me, I just felt that it didn't give me any better result than without. Okay, yeah, biology is biology, right? Okay, if you have a good blood supply, I think it's great. But sticky bone, if I have the choice to use a one or the other, do I use a membrane or do I use sticky bone? I'll use sticky bone all the time. Can you use both together, sticky bone and a membrane? Yeah, you can, if that makes you feel better, right? But if you do feel without the collagen membrane and you realize that healing is just as good, then you probably stop spending money on the membrane as much, right? Right. So that's that. Okay, that's that. Yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed the late night coffee show. I was a little bit under the weather, but I was really looking forward to a late night coffee show. I really enjoy it. I haven't done it for over a year, and then about a couple of weeks ago, I started doing it, and I realized that how much I missed it. Right, how much I missed it. I know sometimes it's late night, especially my friends in Toronto, Montreal, and other parts of the world. They cannot join it because I run this live, and and we have great fun. But those of you can join, I really appreciate it. And for me, the moment that I announce it, I get excited because it's like for me to meet my friends and talk about a case and have spent some time of honesty, right? And yeah, I enjoy it. I enjoy it a lot. So I enjoy your feedback. I read all your comments, believe it or not, and you guys that are a fan of late night coffee show and some of the things that we do on the begin, if you do get a chance to come to New York or the World Conference in Egypt in November, or if you're participating in a Megamind, if you make it to the finale and meet me in Turkey, okay, please, look me up, okay? We'll go for dinner or something. I really, really would like that, okay? So anyways, guys, thank you so much for joining Friday night, late night coffee show. I really, really appreciate it. And you guys, and take care. All right. Hi, I'm Dr. Mark Kwan, a full-time practicing implant dentist in beautiful Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. It is a great honor to share the podium with other great minds at the 16th International MegaGen Symposium in New York City. The main theme of this symposium is Dentistry Wears Digital. Sounds great, but what does that really mean to me? Majority of my daily clinical work revolve around full arch reconstruction. Throughout the history of dentistry, once in a while, there comes a technological advancement that will innovate the way we think, plan, and execute. I call this a game changer. These include digital planning, guided surgery, CAD/CAM design, manufacturing, and much, much more. With these technological advancements, we can now plan and execute both stages of surgery and prosthetics to achieve the most biologically driven, minimally invasive full arch therapy. Welcome to my world of no bone reduction FP1, which I believe to be the next evolution in fixed full arch therapy. I look forward to seeing all of you at the New York Symposium. Take care. Bye-bye.